April 14, 1944. 6:12 a.m. Above Truk Lagoon, Caroline Islands. The rising sun painted the clouds gold as the Pacific wind screamed past the canopy of Lieutenant Jack Hawkeye Durant's F4U Corsair. The engine growled like a living beast, its massive prop carving the air into a vibrating hum that rattled through his gloves. Below him, the blue water shimmered with the reflection of burning ships, columns of black smoke curling upward like dark fingers clawing at the morning sky. Jack wiped sweat from his brow, eyes narrowing through the gun sight. Something moved in the haze ahead. Something fast. A formation of Mitsubishi A6M0 fighters broke through the clouds, their white fuselages glinting like knives in the sunlight. Their leader, a veteran ace named Captain Hiroshi Takeda, tilted his wings with casual confidence. Even from a distance, Jack could feel the mockery in the gesture. The Japanese pilots had a nickname for American pilots who dared fly the new Corsairs Bent-Wing Fools. They laughed at the oversized engine, the gull wings, the sluggish early prototype performance. To them, the Corsair was a joke compared to the nimble Zero, an ungainly beast they believed no American could truly master. But Jack had spent months mastering it. And today, he was done being laughed at. The radio crackled in his headset. Eagle 1, we've got bogies closing fast from the east. Zeros, at least 8. Jack's lips pressed into a thin line. Copy. Keep tight. Don't climb. Let them come down to us. As the Japanese fighters flashed overhead, dropping into a steep attack dive, their laughter seemed to echo in the wind. The Zeros moved with fluid, serpentine grace, slicing through the air in a coordinated assault that had shredded countless American pilots before. Captain Takeda's voice barked across his formation, sharp and confident. Corsairs are too heavy. They cannot turn with us. End this quickly. Jack pushed the throttle forward. The Corsair roared in response. The aircraft lunged upward in a sudden burst of speed that defied everything the Japanese believed about it. The giant radial engine spat fire as the Corsair surged into the attack, its wings glinting like predatory blades. Jack's vision narrowed to a single Zero cutting across his nose. "Let's see you laugh at this," he muttered. He pressed the trigger. The 6.50 calories unleashed a storm of lead. Tracers tore through the morning sky, ripping into the Zero's fuselage. The Japanese fighter erupted in a cloud of smoke and fire, spiraling downward toward the shimmering lagoon below. Takeda's formation scattered instantly, the laughter gone, replaced by something colder. Something resembling fear. Jack banked hard, pulling his Corsair into a vertical climb the Zeros couldn't expect. The gullwing monster wasn't wrestling with physics anymore, it was dancing with them. Jack's heart pounded as sunlight flashed across the canopy. Come on, come on. A Zero slid into position behind him, guns flickering. Tracers zipped past the Corsair's tail, the air hissing with death. Jack rolled the aircraft, flipped into a dive, and the G-forces slammed him into his seat. The Corsair didn't complain, it obeyed. The ocean rushed toward him in a blur of blue until the very last second, when he pulled up, skimming the waves so close the prop wash carved ripples across the surface. The Zero overshot. Jack fired again. Another Japanese fighter burst into flame. Takeda watched from above, eyes wide with rage. He had spent years dominating American Wildcats and Buffaloes, carving his legend into the sky with unmatched agility and ruthless precision. But this American machine moving like a winged furnace should not have been able to do this. He gripped his controls, teeth clenched. I will kill that Corsair myself. He dived. Jack saw his shadow a split second before the Zero screamed down from the sun. The sky exploded with the roar of two engines converging. Jack yanked the stick left. Takeda rolled right. And the two fighters sliced past each other, so close Jack could see the Japanese ace's eyes. Both men ripped into the turn. Both men fought gravity, fought physics, fought each other. But only one aircraft could win a turning fight this low. The Corsair wasn't supposed to be that aircraft. Yet Jack felt something shift, something different, as the big gull wings bit into the humid Pacific air. And for the first time in his career, Captain Takeda's jaw tightened in disbelief. Because the Bent-Wing Fool wasn't losing the turn. He was winning it. The turn tightened until both aircraft screamed under the G-load, the airframes groaning like living beasts pushed past their limits. Jack's vision tunneled, black creeping in at the edges, but he held the stick with both hands, jaw locked. The Corsair's gull wings bit harder, carving a brutal arc through the morning sky. Below them, the waves twisted into a spinning blur of white foam and blue streaks. Takeda Zero strained behind him, its lighter frame fluttering at the edge of stall. The Japanese ace grit his teeth, sweat rolling down his temple. Impossible, he rasped. The Zero had always outturned American fighters. Always. It was law. But the Corsair wasn't following the old rules. Not anymore. Jack forced the aircraft through the final tightening of the spiral, and the Corsair snapped inside Takeda's turning radius, an aerial move no American fighter had ever done in front of him before. The Japanese ace's eyes widened. A moment of disbelief. A moment of vulnerability. Jack pushed the throttle, scoring the sky with a burst of raw engine torque. "Your move, pal," he muttered. The Corsair's 6.50 calories erupted in a flash of fury, sending a hurricane of lead directly across the Zero's nose. Just close enough to shatter its confidence, not close enough to kill. A warning shot. A message. Takeda jerked his aircraft upward, smoke streaking behind him as he pulled into a desperate climb. The sudden maneuver forced another two Zeros to break formation to avoid collision. The once smooth Japanese attack dissolved into chaos, their discipline unraveling against a machine they thought could never match them. Far below, the American carrier group watched the evolving dogfight with anxious eyes. Crew members on deck squinted through binoculars, shouting updates as Corsairs and Zeros twisted above like metallic hawks locked in a deadly ballet. Jack pulled up hard, the sun flashing across his canopy as he rejoined the fight. Three Zeros swooped down from altitude, diving in perfect formation, their wings shimmering in the glare. He heard their guns before he saw the tracers, long streaks of white tearing through the sky like angry wasps. The Corsair shuddered as rounds zipped past his wingtips. "Too many," Jack muttered, climbing sharply. The three Zeros followed him into a vertical chase. They expected the big American fighter to stall. They were used to watching American aircraft bleed speed and fall helplessly back into their gun sights. But the Corsair kept climbing. Takeda, now recovering from his shock, re-entered the fight from above. His voice cut through the Japanese radio channel, controlled but far colder than before. "Do not fear the American. Surround him. Drive him down. He cannot hold altitude forever." Jack leveled off at the top of his climb, using the morning sun to blind the incoming fighters. The cockpit rattled. The props sang. The air thinned into crystalline sharpness. At this height, the sky felt like a blade. He rolled sharply to the right. One Zero overshot. Another tried to follow and lost speed, dropping a wing. The third steadied itself, cutting across Jack's flight path in a perfect firing angle. Jack saw it, felt it, knew he couldn't evade fully. The Zero fired. The Corsair's wingtip exploded in sparks. Rivets flew like bullets. Part of the aileron sheared off and fluttered away into the wind. "Damn it, hold together," Jack hissed. The Corsair trembled violently, but refused to quit. He shoved the throttle and dove, the engine bellowing like a wounded bear. The airframe groaned under the strain of the high-speed drop, the controls going stiff in his hands. The new engine noise tore through the sky like a battle cry. Jack snapped his head toward the sound, heart surging with a mix of hope and disbelief. Through a break in the clouds came a dark silhouette, big, fast, and low. Another Corsair dove through the sunlight, wings flexing under the wind, its prop carving a glowing disk of fury. A second followed, and then a third. Their arrival rippled across the battlefield like a thunderclap. The Japanese formation faltered for a heartbeat. Takeda saw the reinforcements and hissed through clenched teeth. More bent-wing devils. His hands tightened on the controls. The battlefield was shifting against him, and he knew it. But he also knew fear was the enemy. "All aircraft, continue the attack. Do not yield." The two Zeros chasing Jack broke off momentarily, unsure whether to finish him or prepare for the incoming wave. That hesitation was all Jack needed. He rolled left, pulled back on the stick, and shot upward in a sharp climbing arc. The G-force crushed his chest, but he held steady, spiraling toward the sun. The first reinforcing Corsair dropped into position below him, piloted by Lieutenant Sam Ryder Cooper, a fearless Alabama farm boy with a grin as sharp as a knife. Sam's voice cracked through the radio with warm familiarity mixed with danger's edge. "Hawkeye, thought you were having a dance without us." Jack exhaled in relief. "You're late." "Traffic," Sam replied dryly. "Zeros everywhere." Sam's Corsair fired. A clean, disciplined burst that tore through the nearest Zero's wing. The Japanese fighter rolled violently and fell from the sky, trailing smoke. The second reinforcing Corsair dove through the debris, peeling off and engaging two more Zeros in a spiraling clash. Takeda watched the American reinforcements enter the dogfight with practiced precision. These weren't rookies. These were trained, aggressive, unyielding pilots who had learned every trick the Pacific War had taught them. Their Corsairs weren't lumbering beasts. They were predators with fangs bared. Takeda growled into his radio. "Form a new circle. Pull them downward. Do not let them climb." But the Corsairs didn't need altitude. They needed opportunity. Jack's damaged wing groaned as he rejoined the fight, smoke trailing from the aileron. He cut across the battlefield, following Sam through a series of tight maneuvers that kept the Zeros guessing. The sun glinted off the ocean, creating a white-hot glare that turned every turn and dive into a life-or-death gamble. Below them, the remnants of the Japanese formation regrouped, 6 fighters forming a swirling vortex around Takeda, their tight choreography returning, blades slicing through the sky in perfect synchronization. It was a deadly dance they had trained for, one that had claimed hundreds of Allied aircraft in earlier years. But Jack saw something they didn't. Their formation had a blind spot, a small hole, a weakness. He keyed the radio. "Sam, see that turn radius between the lead and the right wingman?" Sam grinned. "Yep. Break it." Sam's Corsair dropped into a stomach-turning dive, passing so close beneath the Japanese circle that the wake buffeted several Zeros. He pulled up sharply, clawing for altitude, the Corsair's wings flexing dangerously. 2 Zeros peeled from the circle to chase him. They shouldn't have. Jack dove into the gap they left behind. His Corsair sliced through the hole like a blade, coming up underneath the Japanese formation at a perfect firing angle. He fired a blistering burst that ripped into the belly of 1 Zero, flames erupting in a geyser of sparks. The circle broke. The formation collapsed. Takeda roared into the radio, "Hold formation. Hold." But it was already too late. The air erupted into complete chaos. Corsairs and Zeros tangled at every altitude, rolling, climbing, diving, firing in white arcs of tracer fire that crisscrossed the sky. The roar of engines and gunfire blended into a deafening storm. Jack weaved through a hurricane of enemy tracers, smoke trailing his Corsair like a wounded eagle refusing to fall. The sun flashed across his canopy. A Zero cut in front of him, a perfect shot. He fired. The enemy fighter exploded in a ball of flame. Takeda saw it, felt something cold coil in his chest. The American he mocked, the one he thought would die easily, had just outflown 2 of his pilots and broken his signature formation. The Corsair, that ugly bent-wing beast, had just proven it could not only climb, it could hunt. Takeda knew he had to act. The honor of his squadron, the pride of the Imperial Navy, and his own legend were on the line. He banked hard, Zero engines screaming. "Hawkeye," Sam warned over the radio, "he's coming for ya." Jack looked up. Takeda was diving like a sword dropped by the gods, leaving a trail of glinting sunlight in his wake. The Japanese ace locked onto Jack's tail. Jack rolled. Takeda followed. Jack dove. Takeda stayed glued to him like a shadow. Jack knew he couldn't outrun him. Not in this condition. And Takeda wasn't firing yet. He wanted the clean kill. He wanted to see his enemy's face. Jack felt a chill. He was being lined up perfectly. But then, in the shimmering glare off the ocean, Jack caught movement behind Takeda's Zero. Jack pulled alongside the Corsair that saved him. The pilot lifted a hand from his canopy, giving a quick salute. It was Lieutenant Mark Crosswind Riker, one of the most precise aviators in the Pacific. Jack returned the salute, adrenaline still burning through him. But the battle wasn't over. The remaining Zeros, seeing their ace struck down, didn't retreat. They didn't break. They became desperate. 3 of them dove at once, forming a tight, synchronized arrowhead formation, something the Japanese had perfected in early war dominance. Their engines howled as they cut downward toward the cluster of Corsairs, guns flashing in rapid bursts. The sky turned into a cage of tracers and smoke. Jack pulled hard right, his damaged wings screaming, barely dodging a spray of fire. Sam's voice shouted through the radio. 2 on your right, Hawkeye? I'll take the high one. Sam's Corsair rolled upward in a tight loop, then dropped in behind one of the attackers, firing controlled bursts that shredded the Zero's tail. The Japanese fighter ignited instantly, tumbling end over end into the sea. Another Zero came down on Jack from above. He couldn't evade it, not with the damage. He braced, gritting his teeth, preparing to jink at the last possible moment. But a shadow swept under him, Crosswind's Corsair. Mark tilted his wings sharply, lifting Jack's crippled aircraft out of the line of fire by creating turbulent wash. The incoming Zero's shots went wide, ripping only through empty air. Jack felt gratitude cut through him like something warm in a world of cold steel. Crosswind didn't wait. He rolled inverted and unleashed a point-blank burst that caught the Zero full in the canopy. The Japanese fighter folded backward, plunging toward the ocean in a pillar of black smoke. 2 Zeros left. One broke high, the other low, trying to split the Corsairs apart. But Jack wasn't done yet. He pushed his dying Corsair into a shallow climb, forcing every ounce of life out of the engine. The cockpit vibrated violently. Warning lights flickered, but he climbed. The Zero above him didn't expect that. Japanese doctrine assumed the Corsair would lose power in steep maneuvers. Not today. Jack came up just under its belly. Close. Too close. He could see the rivets. He fired. The Zero burst into a shower of debris, wings snapping off like torn paper as it plunged into the clouds below. Only one remained. It streaked low across the water, heading back toward Truk Lagoon, a retreating shadow against the sunrise. Sam and Crosswind formed up beside Jack, waiting for the call. Jack steadied his breathing. The Pacific wind whistled across his canopy. Columns of smoke rose from wrecked Zeros. The sun painted everything in gold. This ends now, he said quietly. He pushed his throttle forward. His Corsair surged, damaged, burning, but alive. The last Zero was fast and desperate, skimming the waves, hoping to reach the safety of anti-aircraft guns. But Jack had more than speed on his side. He had momentum. He had fury. And he had the Corsair's unmatched dive power. He closed the distance. 50 yards. 30. 10. The Zero pilot glanced back and saw the bent-wing monster filling his entire sky. Jack pressed the trigger. The guns roared. The Zero erupted into flames, skidding across the water before sinking beneath the waves. Silence settled over the Pacific, a silence broken only by the steady hum of Corsair engines. Jack pulled upward, rising above the smoke and the sunlight, knowing the dogfight was over. The Zeros, the fighters that had once owned the Pacific, had been torn apart by the very aircraft they had mocked. The Corsair formation circled once, wings glinting like steel against the morning sky. Below them, the ocean shimmered with the wrecks of fallen aircraft. And somewhere deep beneath the waves, Captain Takeda's damaged Zero settled slowly into the blue darkness. Jack exhaled, his voice low, steady, carrying a weight the wind couldn't steal. Now nobody's laughing.